Hi guys, this is the Sony 10-18 f4. Is this the best wide-angle lens for the Sony APSC lineup? It's one of them. Let's talk about it. Guys, I know I did a video yesterday, but it was on the iPhone, and I gotta get the taste out of my mouth of that, because yuck, doing stuff about cell phones, I like Apple, I use their products, but what I don't like is when you review something, just the bunch of whiners. So if you do a YouTube video, if you're out there and you want to do YouTube videos, if you do them on cell phones, especially Apple products, you're gonna get the whiniest bunch of whiners in the comments. I don't like the way you do that test, thumbs down, iPhone is perfect. They're great phones. I'm just presenting information. Doesn't matter. You guys, we're going back to our roots. Cameras. I'm a camera guy, all right? I'm not gonna be doing these cell phone things, well, once in a while, but not much. Unless it's gonna get me a lot of views, then definitely. Anyway, this is a great lens. The 10-18 is fantastic, but it is an f4, and now that the Tamron 11-20 2.8 is out, then you may be wondering, maybe I should get that one instead of this, and maybe you should. Let's go out into my backyard and talk about it a little bit, shall we? Twist, we're actually out at a park today because someone was saying, do you ever leave your backyard? And the answer is rarely. But I figured I'd come out today just to change it up. Anyway, I'm on the 16mm focal length right now on the 10-18 f4. Now, why did I choose 16? Because that's what I normally shoot at when you're looking at my dumb face, because I have a 16mm f1.4 from Sigma, which I love very much, and I'll do a review on very soon. But this lens can do this. Wow! Check that out. Look at how much more of this beautiful park that I graced you guys with. Look at how much more you can see. All right, so the first thing I'm going to show you guys is the stabilization. This lens is stabilized, and that is a big benefit to photographers and videographers. Right now I have zero stabilization on, so I turned off the stabilization in the lens. There's no stabilization in the camera, and I'm on the widest focal length, so you're probably going to see a nice bit of warbles here with the in the background. You see the corners. It's a very wide angle lens, so you're going to see those anyway. Wish I was back in my backyard. So this is just me walking down the path with no stabilization on whatsoever. Now let's turn on lens stabilization. Now lens stabilization is on. They call it standard stabilization in the ZV-E10. I don't know why they don't just call it lens stabilization. And I've left it on the widest mode because that is what will give the camera the most amount of difficulty. And let's make it challenging, shall we? So this is me walking down the path, being looked at by people who are walking their dogs. And now I'll turn on the active stabilization. Active stabilization is on, so you'll notice the big crop in. But since it's at a 10mm lens, then the crop is actually usable right now. I would say that we're back to about a 16mm focal length, which is what I'm pretty comfortable with anyway. So what does that look like with the active? I'm walking, you know, decently carefully. And now let's switch to something nice. Okay, now I'm at the 10mm focal length, but I have enabled Catalyst Browse. So I've run the program through Catalyst Browse. See, before I came across the Catalyst Browse, the old CB, which is a free software, by the way, I wasn't a big fan of going out and vlogging. I still am not a huge fan of going out and vlogging. I feel really uncomfortable. People are looking at me, but you know what? Might as well at least get the thing done, right? It's what I do for you people, because people are sick of seeing my backyard. Well, now look what you've done to me. I'm out here like a moron. I like stable footage, is what I'm trying to say. And this lens, even though it's stabilized, and even with the active stabilization on in the camera, it's still not what I would like to use. So I will always use the Catalyst Browse. Now, people say that you have to put your shutter speed up to 1/160 or 1/200, and that is true for Catalyst Browse. And people say things like, well, what about the jittery shutter speed? You know, it's a Saving Private Ryan over here. But I gotta tell you, if you're using it, for the most part, you're doing vlog type scenarios where you're just showing your stupid face and there's not a lot going through the screen. And even if there was, the 1/200 is not going to be extremely jittery. In fact, let me turn off the stabilization. Now this is with the stabilization off and things going through the screen. In my opinion, this looks far more jittery, you know? All right, so back to the lens. Obviously, this lens will give you a really wide field of view, which is very good for vlogging. However, the Tamron 11-20 is also available at a similar price, and that will give you a 2.8. Now, the 2.8 is going to be a lot better in low light. In fact, with the Catalyst browse, because I am using a higher shutter speed, I had to bump my ISO to 400. That's not going to be an issue on the ZV-E10 at ISO 400. If you want to check out my review I did about the low light, I'll link it up here somewhere. But when it comes to a lower light situation and you have to bump the ISO a lot higher, then yeah, you might not be able to use Catalyst browse. But are you night vlogging? I don't know, but maybe you are. And if you are, you're gonna need that 2.8. Now, of course, it is not stabilized, the Tamron lens. So at the very beginning of the video, there where you saw I turned off all stabilization, that is what the Tamron is going to look like. But once again, for me, I'm going to go through Catalyst browse, so I don't care about that either. So then why would you choose the Sony 10-18 f4 over the 11-20? And it is the stability in the lens, because obviously f4 is slower, and it's a little bit lighter. It's 100 grams lighter, which is not nothing, but the Tamron lens is pretty light unto itself. But the stabilization, if you're not, maybe you're not like me. Maybe you don't want to go through the old CB. Maybe you just don't have time. You don't want to do it. Maybe your computer can't do it. I don't know. So if you don't, I'm just going to do a circle here. If you don't want to run through Catalyst browse, you're going to definitely want that stabilization in the lens. If you're out, it'll be a faster workflow. There's no doubt about it. For me, it's still a little too shaky, but hey, I'm not you. You can do what you want. But photos is another thing that you'd want this lens for, because when it comes to photos, if you're hand holding on a camera like the ZV-E10 or any of the a6000 series that do not have in-body stabilization, which none of them do except the a6600, you're going to want a lens that is stabilized so that when you're taking your handheld photos, there will be less shake and you will get sharper photos. But the way I would use these lenses is often in landscape photography. And when it comes to landscape photography, I'm putting my lens on a tripod. So once again, for me, I would lean towards the 11-20 for the Tamron. But you're not me. I mean, I know you want to be. You don't. You really don't. I'm in a park and my shoes are actually wet right now because I'm walking around in the grass. Everybody's staring at me. Doesn't matter. The point is, you might want that stabilization. You might need that stabilization, and that's why you'd go for this lens over the Tamron. Can I go home now? Okay, now we're going to show you the difference between f4 and 2.8. So pay attention to the blurry background or lack thereof. This is f4. So this is f2.8 at a 16mm focal range, and there is some more blur back there, so it's up to you to decide if it is worth it to you. And now I'll show you a couple of pictures I took. I know, I took some pictures, a video guy, but I did. Here they are. This is one of my sons here. He is wearing a Spider-Man costume. He is hanging in this particular, he's fine. It's just the way he likes to play. And he's being Miles Morales right now. And is it cultural appropriation? Who knows? You don't know what's under that mask. You don't know. And here's the other one. He's the regular Spider-Man, the red one. The original, you know? They were breathtaking photos, weren't they? But the color is great coming on. Now, it's only JPEG. Lightroom's still not updated. That's one of the reasons I don't do a lot of photo stuff with the ZV-E10 yet, is that Lightroom still doesn't have it as a profile, and so you'll need to do a big workaround, and I want to wait until Lightroom officially releases an update before I start messing with the raw photos. So these are all JPEGs, but anyway, it takes brilliant pictures. So the only question you're left with is, how do you want to use the lens? If you need the stabilization, you got the shaky hands and you want lens stabilization because you want to take a lot of handheld photos, you might want to look at this. If you're going to do a lot of low light situations, you might want to look at the Tamron. Also, if you're going to use Catalyst browse a lot, then maybe the Tamron too, because you're going to have to bump up your shutter speed just a little bit. And you're also going to get a slightly blurrier background on the 2.8. Remember though, it's a wide angle lens, so you're not going to get a very shallow depth of field anyway on either of the two lenses, but it's definitely going to be a shallower depth of field on the 2.8 from Tamron. So in a nutshell, this is a great lens, and so is the Tamron 11 to 20. You just have to decide which of the two lenses is better for you personally. So stay tuned, because I'm going to do more videos about my favorite lenses for the Sony APS-C lineup, because I much prefer doing videos like that instead of cell phone videos that get me full of hatred. And hey, if there's anyone from Tamron out there listening, I would love to bring your lenses in, test them out, show them to the audience here, because yeah, I can't just buy every single lens. I mean, you know, I have the money, don't get me wrong, but I'm shopping for a new yacht right now, so I don't really have a lot of extra dough for the lenses. Anyway, thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon. Okay, bye-bye. My cell phone's perfect. Thumbs down. Bunch of crybabies can't handle the truth. You can't handle